Yo. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing today, Coach?
Doing great.
Look good. Look well.
Appreciate it.
You don't look rested. I don't look rested either, but it's okay.
It's all right. We're here, though.
It's all right.
Another day, another dollar,
we
right?
in this. How you feeling?
Feeling good, man. Just stay busy.
How's your week been so far?
Yeah, man, pretty busy. Just been, so busy, I don't even know what the fuck I did yesterday. So, but anyways, well, how was your week, Coach?
My week has been pretty exhausting, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I'm not even going to front. It's been pretty exhausting. Monday supposedly was like a day off, but it wasn't a day off because I had like ripping and running to do. I had to pick a new schedule at work, which I'm not the happiest about, but it still gives me my chances to still do this, which is most important right now. And it still gives me a little leeway to do things on the weekends for coaching and training and development for the guys. Whenever we get around to that, which we still have to figure that out, but that's another emotional roller coaster that I don't want to necessarily get into. But other than that, it's been a long week. Yesterday I worked. I didn't get off till 12 o'clock in the morning, and then decided I told myself that I would go home and get some sleep really quickly and be back up. And it doesn't work like that. So I stayed in my bed looking at the ceiling for about an hour until my body said, okay, you've unwind enough. So now you can fall asleep. And before I knew it, I blinked and I was back up and I was driving here. So it is what it is. For the love of the pod, baby.
Yes,
for
sir.
the love of the pod. But we have a new segment that we want to get into. It's called the Halftime Give and Go, baby.
Yes, sir.
And what this is specifically is where we give ourselves 30 seconds per topic. It's a rapid fire take. We don't really necessarily get into a back and forth, but we just dedicate 30 seconds to each one of us, particularly giving our take on a topic, and the other person just goes either yay or an A. So the first topic in the Halftime Give and Go is Josh Allen gets a new deal. Coach, how you feel?
Yeah, I think it's the right move. He still had 4 years left on his contract, so really the Buffalo Bills did not have to do this. He's making, I believe it's 5 years, $330 million, $250 of that being guaranteed. I think it's a great move for the Buffalo Bills. They're getting a little bit ahead of the QB market, and for a guy like Josh Allen that just won the MVP this last season, only having to pay him the same amount of money that Jordan Love's getting paid, I think is a great deal for the Buffalo Bills. It gives them a lot of leeway.
I agree. Sam Darnold to the Seahawks on me. Look, I'm going to say this. I don't necessarily think it's an overpay, but I do think they are a prisoner of the moment. They traded Geno Smith, which we'll talk about later, and they picked up Sam Darnold in hopes that he can produce and replicate what he did with the Minnesota Vikings, but I'm afraid they're going to find out it was more the coach than it was Sam Darnold.
Yep, I agree with
Khalil Mack to the Chargers, or stays with the Chargers. How you feel, Coach?
Yeah, 1 year, $18 million deal. Was expecting him to go to Chicago, possibly.
Really?
Possibly sign with them or at least hit the open market. But just minutes before the legal tampering period started, he gets his contract, stays with the Chargers. Of course, they move on from Joey Bosa, so they could pay Khalil Mack, and I think it's a good move for them. They need some continuity still, and I think he's still got a decent amount left in the tank.
I agree. Devontae Adams to the Rams. Coach, look, all I'm going to say is this. They keep Matthew Stafford. They got Puka. They got Devontae. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if Cooper Kupp stays his butt in Los Angeles. He might leave depending on the money and depending on the team that's willing to pay him. But if they were to all stay, that's a great trio of wide receivers to have for Matthew Stafford. And if I'm Matthew, I can't do anything but smile ear to ear because I think this is a great move for the Rams, and I think this is a great move for Devontae.
No doubt. Agree.
Deebo Samuel to Washington. This is still on me. I think Cliff Kingsbury is going to be able to use Deebo in a very good and creative way. I think this also helps Jaden Daniels in a quick pass game. It allows them to no longer have to use Terry McLaurin in that way. It allows them to transfer that to Deebo, who is pretty much probably one of the best wide receivers in open space, getting yards after the catch, the good old yak, and just putting him in situations where you just give him the ball and let him go to work. So I think this is a great move for the Commanders. I'm not sure how much of the great Debo we have left. But in the window, while Jaden Daniels is on his rookie contract, I think this is a great move.
Yep, I agree with you there.
And then we finally have Laramie Tunsil to the Commanders. How you feel about that, Coach?
Yeah, another big move for the Commanders. They've had a hell of an offseason as well. I think it's a great pickup, at that left tackle position. Laramie Tunsil has been one of those Pro Bowl left tackles for a couple of years now. Believe he's a 5-time Pro Bowler.
Yeah, something along that
he's solid. Only downside with him is that he does pick up a lot of penalties. I think last year alone he had around 60 penalties throughout the whole season. But regardless, very strong. Very stable as well. He doesn't really miss games that often. He was one of the only highlights on that Texans O-line. So the Commanders being able to pick him up and solidify Jaden Daniels' O-line this year is going to be very crucial, and it was a great move for them.
I agree. Well, that has been the halftime give and go. Now on to our favorite game. Coach, are you ready to play?
Yeah, we're ready.
As always, you know what our game is. Who's cooking and who should stay the out the kitchen. Number one on who's cooking. I guess we have to give him credit. He's been doing a good job, Coach. And you wore your sweater today. I didn't wear mine because I have some things to say.
Okay.
But Ryan Poles right now is cooking. He's doing some great things. Obviously, we'll get to a point where we want to ask what grade will we give him for this offseason at some point. But right now, Ryan Poles is doing all the things that we asked him to do. He addressed key components or key areas on the defensive line. He addressed key areas on the offensive line. So far, the only skill position that he's even looked at was a tight end position, and that was pretty much just somebody to come in and be a roster filler, a run blocker. Nobody that's really splashy, but just somebody that can help do some of the dirty work that's required in the Ben Johnson offensive scheme. But for the most part, he's doing exactly what we asked. Look at the trenches. Focus on the trenches. And with that being said, right now, he's cooking, Coach. I got to give him a little bit of that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I've really liked the acquisitions and the players he's made. He's signed and also just traded for. I think the Joe Thuney trade was really one of those moves that nobody was expecting coming into this season. He wasn't really made available. And then, they go ahead and sign Drew Dahlman, 25-year-old against center. Everybody that they signed, including Deo and Grady Jarrett as well, they're all under 3-year contracts, more or less. Joe Thuney still needs to be extended, of course, but it's within that Caleb Williams window, and I think that's a very smart move by Ryan Poles, and especially with these 25-year-old guys. With the veterans, it's like, okay, after the 3 years, if they're not doing well, it's easy to move on from. Right. But with the 25-year-old guys and Drew Dahlman and Deo, if they're playing great, awesome. You get to extend them still for a decent amount of time. If not, you can move on from them, possibly trade them, and they still have upside since they're still young of age.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to another GM who's also cooking, the Steelers GM, Omar Khan. Mm-hmm. Omar, you're doing a great job over there in Pittsburgh. You still have to figure out what you're going to do at the quarterback position, which we'll talk about later. But getting DK Metcalf is a big, big, big acquisition. I think that's going to help out with the Steelers offense a lot. You needed somebody next to George Pickens who would give some pressure off of him and allow him to be able to do the things that he needs to do on the field. And DK Metcalf coming in gives them an additional weapon, somebody that's been in the league, that's made some noise. It also could potentially give some or show the hand of what maybe Pittsburgh is thinking about doing at the quarterback position. But at the end of the day, I'm loving what Pittsburgh is doing so far. They haven't made too many more acquisitions. They haven't lost guys either. So that's also big when you haven't lost too many players and then you're still bringing some premium top talent in. That is a good thing because at least you have the chance to add in talent that you are with what you already have and kind of build on what you had last season and continue with that bit of continuity that you've been holding on to under the Mike Tomlin era.
Yeah, no doubt. I think this team is ready for even a veteran quarterback. A lot of the media has been saying like, oh, maybe they should just reset the quarterback position and go ahead and get themselves a rookie. I don't think so. I think if they take one of these two veterans available on the block, meaning Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, I think they do just fine and they can make some noise this season instead of just going 9-8 or 10-7. I think they could actually make a decent push in the playoffs because of how their defense is.
Okay.
Of course, Najee Harris leaves in free agency to go to the Chargers. It's a little bit of a loss, but I think it was smart on the Steelers to finally part ways. Najee has been consistent in showing up to games, but I don't think not what they hoped for. He's always kind of been a letdown ever since his first year in the league, which was his only really standout year. But picking up DK alongside of George Pickens, you still got Pat Freiermuth. Now you got, if you go ahead and take a quarterback, be on the lookout for the Steelers to move up in the draft and try to get Genty. Or they take Omarion Hampton.
I think they're gonna stay. I think they're gonna stay at 21 and take Omarion Hampton.
I think they take running back for sure.
Yeah, but they take a running back.
Yeah.
But I think they take Omarion Hampton at 21 if they just stay right there, unless they decide to go a different way. But we'll talk about that as well.
See, yeah.
All right, moving on to who should stay out the kitchen. Number 1, the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta. You're losing a lot of players right now, and two of them, two of your biggest players have come right to the Windy City, Chicago. I don't know exactly what the game plan is for Atlanta, but I'm assuming that their game plan is to address this in the draft. I'm assuming that they're going to try to find them another defensive interior player in the draft. I'm assuming that they're going to try to find them another center in the draft. And if that's the case, then more power to them. They are a younger team. I'm not upset with them still going young. The only thing I don't understand is how you let a 26-year-old center walk out the building if you're still a young team. I'm not understanding why they let that happen. From what the reports are saying about this specific player, Drew Dahlman, it wasn't necessarily that Chicago gave him the best deal. It was more so that he just wanted to come here. So it appears as though that there was absolutely nothing that the Atlanta Falcons could have done to keep him unless they were going to pay him like $30 million a year. It seems like they would have had to pay him something absurd for him to stay in Atlanta, which makes me wonder exactly what it was going on in Atlanta that he did not approve of. Is he not a fan of Michael Penix? I'm not sure exactly what it is, but for right now, it looks like the Atlanta Falcons are going backwards as much as I thought that they could go forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with you. I think the only move they've made so far as bringing somebody in, they brought in Leonard Floyd from
the 49ers.
Yeah, the 49ers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's kind of a running joke going around the league because of Ryan Pace's connection now with the Falcons, and of course he used to be the former GM with the Bears.
Oh, he's just gonna grab all the old Bears players.
We're constantly just like we just picked up Falcons players, they're picking up Bears players. It's like we're just
swapping players.
So
yeah.
it's kind of funny how that
works
out. But
just really quickly, Coleman Shelton went back to the Rams.
Yeah, I saw
be
that
their
too.
center.
Yeah, I did see that as well.
Which I think is going to be interesting because it's going to say a lot if he goes back to the Rams and plays well versus what happened with him in Chicago. Then it's gonna raise some eyebrows as to like, was it coaching really well? If he goes back to the Rams and play well, we'll save that for a little bit. But if he does go back there and play well, it's gonna raise some eyebrows in my opinion about a lot of things.
Absolutely.
But moving on to the next group that should stay out the kitchen, the Phoenix Suns. Just can't seem to get it right, Coach. Last episode, we talked about how there could be a possibility that the Phoenix Suns could slip into that number 10 spot in the Western Conference. And for the love of God, they cannot seem to win a game. So it's almost as if Dallas could arguably be giving them a layup to take that 10 spot, even though Dallas has won a few games here and there to kind of keep themselves above the Phoenix Suns in that number 10 spot. But I do say to myself that if Phoenix can't find themselves, if they can't find themselves in the play-in, that's going to be absolutely a disastrous season. And if I'm Phoenix, I might actually go into this offseason considering blowing it completely up. And that might even mean trading Devin Booker. And trading Kevin Durant, obviously, because Bradley Beal is the only one with a no-trade clause. So at that point, you technically are stuck with either building a team around him or potentially having to find a team that he wants to go to and settling for whatever it is that team is willing to give you. So if you're the Phoenix Suns, you may really have to consider moving Devin Booker and Kevin Durant this offseason in order to re-spark, re-energize, remake, and revamp the Phoenix Suns team, because clearly this three-headed monster of KD, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, which we thought could be something special, has turned out to be a complete dud.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, since we are in the latter half of the season here, it's very clear, essentially, the vision kind of moving forward for some of these teams. I think we could all argue how we see the future of the Warriors or the Thunder looking like versus the future of the Suns.
Right.
Just being in this time of the year, and the Suns being 2.5 games back from the Mavericks. They're 4-6 in their last 10. The Mavs are 3-7. The Suns are gonna have to go on a little bit of a run here.
Yeah, they got to go on a win streak.
And honestly, is it beneficial for them? I'm not too sure, because they could possibly they're probably moving on from Kevin Durant this offseason, I would presume, and they would be receiving multiple first-round draft picks. So, I mean, does it make sense to keep on trying to compete and, kind of fight your way into that plan, or should you kind of take a step back, screw the play-in, and really just trying to land a lottery spot? That way you could pick up somebody solid in the draft, and then you got multiple first-round picks still after that, and you could really restart that rebuild at a quicker pace than maybe what you would have initially done.
You think KD is still worth 2 first-round picks?
Well, that's what they've been saying, multiple 3.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
so I don't
it would
know.
suck to be an NBA GM trying to make that trade for Kevin Durant at that
Seriously,
age,
man.
because I'm not giving up 3 first-round picks. I love KD, but not at the age that he is. I'm not giving that up. But
No.
that's been our game of who's cooking and who should stay the fuck out the kitchen. Now, moving on to the halftime report. Yeah. First on the docket. First on the docket. Yeah. All right. First on the docket. DK to Pittsburgh. Coach. My question for you, now that DK is in Pittsburgh, the real only question is, we've already discussed that this is a good trade. We know that DK Metcalf is a great wide receiver. There's nothing to really discuss right there. He's still kind of, fairly young. He'll be going into his prime. What does this mean for the quarterback position in Pittsburgh? Because in my opinion, I think this is heavily saying that the Pittsburgh Steelers are probably going to ride with Russ for another maybe 1 to 2 years. Maybe we might find out at some point that Russ signs a 3-year deal worth $90 million or something. I'm not sure what the cap space is in Pittsburgh, but for me, this screams that Russell Wilson will still be the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He'll get a chance to reconnect with DK Metcalf. He'll have Pickens, and then in the rest of this free agency, Pittsburgh will get a chance to maybe see if they can add some pieces to the offensive line or whatever else, fill in some holes. But for me, this screams Russell Wilson is staying as the quarterback for Pittsburgh. I don't know what you think, but how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's very reasonable to think. And I agree with you on the stances that they do need to add to their offensive line. I believe they did just lose James Daniels this offseason.
Where did he go?
They didn't re-sign him. So I don't know if he's still on the open market or if he got signed, but they did not re-sign him as far as I'm aware. But yeah, I could definitely see a world where Russell Wilson comes back.
Right.
Something tells me that Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, they're gonna land in 2 spots, I think. I think it's gonna be, one of them's gonna be in Pittsburgh, the other one is going to be in New York with the Giants. I think it's one of those 2.
Really? You don't think it's going to be Minnesota?
So that's the thing. I think Minnesota is gonna move on to JJ McCarthy now.
Why would they do that?
Because I think they really want to see what the kid could do. Maybe they really liked what they saw last season from him before he got injured.
They wasn't speaking highly of him in the offseason.
I mean, they really
camps.
Well, yeah, in the training camps, correct. But once they move on to the preseason, he was playing some pretty good ball, and people were believing on him. People were saying he might actually end up being the day 1 starter last season before he got hurt, and then Sam Darnold just stepped in. So it was interesting enough to see how, now they've moved on from Sam Darnold. They wanted to bring him back, but not at the price point that he was
Absolutely
apparently
not.
asking. So,
Yeah, absolutely not.
I think it was smart on them because now they still got flexibility. I think ultimately Minnesota ends up with JJ McCarthy because that is the quarterback they drafted. And if he's still on the rookie contract and they're a believer in what he can do, now's the time to maximize it. And I think that's the proof is in the pudding with what the moves that they've made. Regarding on the defensive line, they signed 2 big defensive linemen to fill their A gaps and their B gaps. So
Yeah.
that defense with Brian Flores still coaching it, which is surprising that he's still there. Now I'm surprised
Not
he
to
didn't get
me.
a head coaching job elsewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe to some of the league, but yeah, I think bringing in or letting JJ cook, and then New York probably gets, I don't know which one they would end up
Yeah,
getting.
so okay.
Apparently, they've been really heavy in the Russell Wilson race
Conversation.
and it's really only been them that's been trying
So
to.
so my only question for you is, see, Minnesota is screaming, the moves that they're making is screaming that they think that they can win a Super Bowl now. Based upon what their record was last year with Sam Darnold, based upon the moves that they made in the offseason. I think they picked up Will Fries. They got a couple big defensive linemen that they added.
Ryan Kelly as well.
Ryan Kelly is a center. So they're making moves as if they understand that they have a Super Bowl winning opportunity right now. If that's the case, I'm not wasting that on a rookie quarterback, because right now I can still get Aaron Rodgers for a 2-year deal. And we could potentially win a Super Bowl while Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. JJ McCarthy is still learning. And then by the time he's ready for an extension, we give him that 1 year to see what he does. And we can sign him to a lesser deal on that extension because he still has time to prove himself, which would be the smarter thing if you're in Minnesota than allowing him to come in. And then he, let's say, for the sake of argument, he does absolutely like superb, and now you have to pay him $65 million a year for his next extension. If I'm Minnesota, I'm not doing that. I want to bring in a veteran that I think can help us win a Super Bowl right now. JJ McCarthy can still learn, and then we can kind of Jordan Love this situation when his first big contract comes. We don't make him the highest paid quarterback, but we make him, we give him something nice. We give him something good because he is still our quarterback for the future, and we don't want to like disrespect him. But I don't want to be in a situation where if we're Minnesota, JJ McCarthy, just like I said, for the sake of argument, he comes in, balls out, and now you have to pay him $65 million a year with the way that the quarterback contracts are going. So if I'm Minnesota, I try to go that route because I think Aaron Rodgers gives them a good chance of winning the Super Bowl, at least constructed where they are right now, especially with the additions that they made. New York, in my opinion, I think they could go veteran. I'm not saying I'm ruling that out. But if they miss out on getting, let's say, Cam Ward, and there's an opportunity that they could trade up to get the first overall pick, and fans hear about that, there's going to be a lot of people pissed off in New York, because at this point, New York football, at least for the Giants, they are starving for their next quarterback of the future. Yeah. They're kind of like over this whole feeling of like, let's get the veteran stopgap quarterback. And plus, Giants fans saw how Aaron Rodgers looked with the Jets, and they saw how Russell Wilson looked with the Steelers. Yes, we may or may not be able to win more games than we did, but there's still a ceiling based upon the roster construction that we have. The Giants are not necessarily like a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl winning team. They have some good pieces. I'm not going to say that they don't have good pieces. And they have a fairly good defense, but I don't think they're just a quarterback away from winning the Super Bowl. I could be wrong, but I don't think they are. And I think that if they're smart, they would invest in getting a quarterback that could be on a rookie contract for the next 4 to 5 years, whatever the case may be, that they can develop with Brian Daboll, and that will give them a chance to continue to enhance this team and build a superstar or a Super Bowl studded roster around, let's say, a Cam Ward. And if he does become the quarterback that you think he can, then now you have a chance to win a Super Bowl with that rookie on the rookie contract. I could be completely wrong, right? Russell Wilson could come in and light things up in New York, and they could go on to win a Super Bowl. I could be completely wrong, but I don't necessarily think that that's the best option. But I'm not completely disagreeing with you.
Yeah, I mean, just to quickly wrap it up on this DK segment. Yeah, I mean, I think the trade was great for them. Does that necessarily mean moving on to Russ, possibly, or continuing with Russ? Possibly. Just to get kind of that DK level that was in Seattle when he first came on with Russ. He is making $30 million as well. So I think it's very interesting to see that. And just quick sidebar, man, the longer Cincinnati waits to re-sign Jamar Chase, the more they're gonna have to pay that man.
Well, yeah,
and
of course.
And they're playing a very
the
troubling
same thing
game.
With T. Higgins.
They're playing such a troubling game. Yeah, but
they franchised him. They're gonna have to pay him too.
Yeah, but I think eventually they're gonna move on from T because they're not gonna have the cap. No
way,
shape, or form. They're gonna have to pay Jamar at least 40 probably. He's gonna reset
the way
thing,
things are going. The way things are going. You're right, Coach. All right, moving on to our next segment of the halftime report. Justin Fields to the New York Jets. This was something that we thought could potentially happen. We talked about this on the last episode, whether or not the Jets would just, decide to just bring Justin Fields in as their quarterback prospect, or if he will stay with the Steelers. That has been answered. Justin Fields gets to rekindle with his former teammate at Ohio State and Garrett Wilson. He gets to go to the New York Jets, who have a similar mindset and build up as the Steelers. They have a defensive-minded coach in Aaron Glenn. They have pretty much a strong defense. They have some decent weapons. I'm sure that maybe the Jets might decide to add in another weapon. They might decide to add in McMillan. And we'll talk about that later. But there's a chance that they may go wide receiver. Or they might get a tight end. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm assuming that we're bringing Justin Fields in as a quarterback. They're going to try to facilitate a process in which they put enough pieces around Justin in his 2 years that he signed on for. 2 years, $40 million, only $30 million guaranteed. They're going to find out exactly what they have with Justin before they decide to move on. If they want to go find that rookie quarterback that they think can lead them in the future. So I'm happy for Justin. I think this is a good chance for him to be with an organization that is going to give him the tools and the resources to facilitate and see exactly what he can be in the NFL. And at this point, if it doesn't work for the Jets, then he should either consider a new career or figure out if he can be a great career backup in the NFL. Because if it doesn't work with the Jets, he'll most likely never get a chance to be a starter in the NFL again, unless he just so happens to luck up like Sam Darnold.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. This is his chance. He's got 2 years. $40 million deal, $20 million a year, which is a pretty hefty contract considering he didn't start. But he is going to be the starter, so of course it makes sense in that aspect. This is going to be the most loaded offense he's had since Ohio State. He's gonna have Garrett Wilson. He's gonna have Breece Hall, solid offensive line. He's gonna have.
They got to build that offensive line a little bit more.
I think they should
get Mekhi Becton.
They might end up getting him. See, my thing with Mekhi Becton, we'll get into this on the offensive line, and the reason why I don't think he's been signed yet or moved somewhere is because I think teams are kind of scared of the fact that before he reached Philadelphia, he wasn't good. He was a dud. He came to Philadelphia, that's when he became good. So really, is he really a product of him becoming better, or is he a product of the system?
Or a product of the other guys around him.
Right. He had Lane Johnson and Jason Kelce around him. So it's
not this season. He didn't have Jason Kelce.
Right, but regardless, best offensive line in football by far.
So, he was a part of that though. He could have easily been like a obvious Achilles heel or an obvious weak link, but he didn't look like that. Yeah, so there's a little bit of credit that he can get.
Absolutely, and I mean maybe they do go ahead and get Mekhi Becton, or they draft at 7. Maybe they do get
Maybe they get Mimbu.
Yeah, Mimbu. Maybe they end up getting Will Campbell
or Kelvin Banks or somebody like that. But let's pivot to this. Geno to the Raiders. How do you feel about Geno to the Raiders?
Yeah, not surprising at all. I think Pete Carroll was going to get one of his Seattle quarterbacks.
Either Russell or Geno. Yeah.
Absolutely. I just thought it was going to be one of them. Doesn't make sense. Not really.
Not to you?
I don't really see the vision in bringing Geno.
I think just really quick, I think it makes sense if you're just – Pete Carroll's job is to establish culture. You can't establish culture with a rookie quarterback. You need somebody that's stable, somebody that just understands how not to turn the ball over, how to not put the offense or the team in compromised situations. What Vegas wants to do and what Pete Carroll has been tasked to do is to come in, create a culture that's a winning culture, and develop players with the mindset of what it takes to be a winner, the habits, the practice schedules, things of that nature. And you need like a steady Eddie at the quarterback position in order to do that. So I think it makes sense in that regard. I do think though that the Vegas Raiders should still try to figure out who's going to be their quarterback of the future, because it ain't going to be Geno Smith.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I definitely see the benefit in bringing him in. Just like you said, great locker room presence, veteran, a guy that Pete Carroll already knows, and he's got a pretty great comeback story in the NFL.
Right.
He could, whatever young quarterback they do end up bringing on, he could kind of tell his story, says, put the train going in the right direction instead of, having a derail. So, is it going to help impact him now? Yeah, probably. He's better than Gardner Minshew. And whoever else they're going to have quarterback the team.
Right.
But not much of a difference, I think, in their record bringing in Geno Smith.
Okay. All right, moving on to our next segment. All right, getting back to Ryan Poles and what he's done with the Chicago Bears. Let's talk about this Bears offensive line makeup, right? We got Braxton Jones as the left tackle. We traded for Joe Thuney. We signed Drew Dahlman. We traded for Jonah Jackson, and we still have Darnell Wright. The only two individuals from the offensive line from last season for the Bears are our two tackles. So far, are you excited about this Bears offensive line, new makeup, new look, or do you think there are still things that we need to look at to make this offensive line something that you think can be elite amongst the elite, let's say top 7 in the NFL?
Yeah, this might be it. I think
you think this is a top 7 line?
I think it definitely could be.
Okay.
I think that interior is probably one of the best interiors in football. Granted, people aren't believers in Jonah Jackson, but the more tape I've watched of him in Detroit, and just reading into all the dysfunction and kind of all the mishaps that were going on in Los Angeles during his time there, we can see why he didn't succeed in Los Angeles like he was expected to. And then you bring in a guy like Drew Dahlman, again, 25 years old, one of the best run blockers. Of course, the only knock he has is some of his pass blocking. But when you have guys that are specific in pass blocking, and Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson, those are two really good pass blockers.
Right.
It's gonna help him out a great deal. So. Great moves there. Darnell Wright, I've been a fan of him since we drafted. I think he's one of the most solid tackles in the league.
Tackles.
Yeah, he's a big boy. Braxton Jones is my only question mark on this offensive line. Granted, I believe he's 27 years old. We've been trying to make this work, but it hasn't necessarily come to fruition yet. Maybe this is the year that it does, because he's finally got some help. He's got Joe Thuney right next to him, but I wouldn't be surprised also if in the draft we still do end up taking offensive line. One of the tackles, maybe it's M'Boo, maybe they do take Will Campbell, or they take Kelvin Banks,
or Josh Simmons,
have him compete for that left tackle spot. Make it a position battle, essentially. But I'm definitely a fan of how this offensive line looks right now compared to how it looked last year. Way better.
My only concern, I have two concerns. Braxton Jones, I wonder if he's going to maintain being a left tackle, or if we're going to go into the draft still thinking that we probably need to figure out if Braxton Jones needs to have a little fire put to his ass to keep that position by drafting a rookie. But then if you throw a rookie out there, you got to be sure that that rookie is amongst the elite of left tackles possible, because that's the side that is Caleb's blind side, and you got to make sure that that's protected. Joe Thuney, I know that it feels like he is in my opinion, like just a left guard stopgap for right now. He's not the left guard for our foreseeable future, probably maybe like a 2-year, 3-year window, like you said, just under Caleb's rookie contract. My only concern with him is that I'm just hoping that he's not on the back end of his career and we don't get the Joe Thuney that we think we're getting. That's my only worry. I hope that's not the case, but it could easily be because of his age and just because he's already played a lot of years in the NFL. Not saying the offensive lineman can't do that, but he's already played a lot of years in the NFL. He's 33 or 32, one of those, and obviously he's on the latter end of his career. So I'm just hoping that he still has the Pro Bowl makeup that we are trading for and not ending up in a situation where we got the old guy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm just not hoping for. But as far as on paper, I think we've done a great job. I like the Drew Dahlman signing. He's 25, 26. Jonah Jackson, same age, 26. Pretty much everybody on this offensive line is somewhere between 25 to 27 years old outside of Joe Thuney. Which then again lends to the fact that maybe we do still go with a offensive lineman in the draft, but it may not necessarily be to replace Braxton. It may be the guy that's supposed to be the understudy to Joe Thuney, right, to replace him when he's gone. I could be wrong. But because I could be wrong, let's move to the second portion of this. Now that we have identified key pieces on the offensive line, there is more and more chatter and build up about us getting Ashton Jeanty with the number 10 pick. Apparently, the Bears meet with the running back prospect, Ashton Jeanty, at the Combine. He's met with our running back coach, Eric Bieniemy. And from everything that I'm hearing, everything has been a strong go. Conversations have went well. Interviews have went well. The Bears seem to be really enamored and really positive on this kid. I'm going to say this right now, and I know Bears fans may or may not agree with me. Some will, some won't, but I think it would be absolutely the worst possible situation and the worst possible outcome for the Bears at the number 10 spot to say we're on the clock and we draft Ashton Jeanty. I don't want it at all.
Okay.
I would rather, and we'll talk about it, but I would much rather see the Bears not waste the number 10 pick on a running back specifically at that number, because I do think there are some much more high caliber players for keyer positions that we can get instead of getting this guy at the skill position. But somebody else could really think that. I've heard people say that he could be the next version of Barry Sanders. I've heard people say that. I am big, and I'm a big proponent of you have to stop comparing guys to elite level Hall of Fame players in any sport. You have to stop doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Let it happen organically. Let it be one of those things where as we watch the player, we go, oh, that's who he reminds me of.
Mm-hmm.
Let it be one of those things. Don't come in comparing guys to certain people, because there are just certain players that when you say their name, it's automatically a atonement of like expectations and greatness that must follow. You cannot say Barry Sanders and then go out there and look like Thomas Brown or DeAndre Swift.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it. You can't tell me that this kid can be Barry Sanders and he doesn't go out there and look like Barry Sanders. Because if anybody knows about Barry Sanders, and I'm not the biggest Detroit fan, but one thing I can say about Barry Sanders is that second to Walter Payton, and I know this for sure because Walter Payton himself went to Barry Sanders twice when he retired to tell him to come back to the NFL because it was Barry who Walter specifically wanted to break his records, not Emmitt Smith. This is how much Barry Sanders was loved, adored, and appreciated for his talent. So when you say something like that, this kid Jeanty better be everything that Barry Sanders brings. And if he is, then cool. But if he ain't, this would be one of those situations where we decided to pass on Jalen Carter for Darnell Wright, and I still believe Jalen Carter should have been the player we got.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I agree with you on the standpoint that I think if we remain at 10 and Ashton Jeanty is the pick, I think that's probably the worst outcome that the Bears could have had in this draft. I wouldn't be a fan of taking him at 10. I would much rather move down at least a couple spots.
Right.
But you got to be careful with that as well. If you really do want Jeanty,
you got to take him at 10. If you really want him, you got to take him at 10.
You have to, because Dallas is coming around the corner at 12, and they'll take him for sure. but I think, man, I don't know. I think he's gonna be great. I think I think he's gonna be good in his first year. Where he goes after that, I believe it is all dependent on how his offensive line is. I think even at Boise State, which aren't necessarily one of the more premier football programs in the country.
No. And they're not playing in one of the best conferences.
No, but
you know how big I am about which conference you come from.
Very true, but I'll tell you what, that offensive line was legit. He had a couple guys on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they did play Penn State, which was arguably probably the best defense in football last year, and in the college realm, he still had a very solid game, and they were packing the box every single time. So I think he's going to be a good talent, but I do think the Bears should definitely pivot elsewhere. Again, I think if offensive line is there, you take it. And then with your later picks, I think regardless in this draft, positions that need to be addressed, still offensive line.
And still edge rusher.
Edge, running back.
Yeah.
Whatever order that's in, I'm fine with. But if you cover those three positions, you succeed in the draft. I think those are the three guys. Like you could take a running back in the second round. Maybe you take Judkins. Maybe you take Hampton. Won't fall to the second.
No, he's not going to fall that far.
But if you go later, maybe you take Caleb Johnson, right? Maybe you take one of those guys.
And I think that's the reason why Jeanty goes at 10 if he's there, because you ain't gonna get a chance to get on Marion Hampton. And if you don't take Jeanty at 10, then you miss out on Jeanty completely. So now you miss on the two best running back prospects in the draft. Then you go to the second round and you're probably still not going to be able to get some of the top prospects in the offensive line. So it's like you're going to have to make a decision, right? Let's say it comes down between let's move to our next segment. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
All right, so we understand Jeanty could be there, but due to some of the free agency moves and due to the combine, there has been somewhat of a shakeup when it comes down to the NFL draft. So we want to look at part one of this. This is the first 10, right? From this mock, this new 3.0 mock from Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Combine. I think he works for NFL Network. He has Abdul Carter being the number one prospect. He has Ashton Jeanty being the number 3 prospect. Now, Ashton Jeanty has moved up because the order used to be Abdul Carter first, Cam Ward number 2 or number 1. It used to basically be the top 3 was Abdul, Cam Ward, and Travis Hunter. That was how it was at the beginning. Now Ashton Jeanty has raised up to be the 3rd best prospect over Mason Graham and over Cam Ward. Cam Ward has dropped down to being, according to this mock, to being the 10th best player that you can draft. And Will Campbell has also failed to number 9. If you're looking at this gives you the idea that Ashton Jeanty could be gone before the Bears even 10 pick come, which then means that there's a stronger chance that somebody like Will Campbell will potentially be the player that we most likely have a chance to draft. If Will Campbell is there and Ashton Jeanty is both there, what do you do if you're the Bears?
I think if Will Campbell's there at 10, you take Will Campbell.
You don't take Jeanty.
I don't think so. I think you take Will Campbell simply because I think solidifying a future in your offensive line with a star that Will Campbell is, I think is much more important than just getting the flashy running back.
Okay.
If you have a solid offensive line, you could damn near put anybody at running back, and they'll still have a great season.
I hate when people say that,
but
there's some merit to it. I'm not completely.
I don't say everybody, like, bro, you look at San Francisco. They had four different running backs this year. All of them had solid games because of how solid their offensive line was.
No.
You know what I mean?
I completely understand what you're saying. If you have a comparable running back, somebody that understands gaps, knows how to read the way the line is shifting, and understands how to hit the hole the right way, you can have a fairly good season even as an average running back if you just have a good offensive line and just know how to read. So I'm not completely like disagreeing with what you're saying. I just want to be careful about it because I think the running back market gets completely disrespected because people just assume exactly what you said, that as long as you got an offensive line, you can put anybody back there. It's not necessarily you can put anybody back there. They still have to have some talent. But yes, the running back position definitely requires an offensive line in order to be effective. Hell, we just saw it with Saquon Barkley, and we saw it with Derrick Henry. Like, as great as those running backs are, which they are great, Saquon doesn't do and have the impact that he had on this season without the Philadelphia Eagles front line being what it is.
Yep.
Now, with this first 10, are you surprised by any names or anybody that fell or anybody that's...
Yeah, there's one name that jumps out at me.
Yeah.
Colston Loveland.
I mean, he must... apparently, he did really spectacular at the Combine.
See, but that's why I hate all of these analysts, and I mean, not hate. Hate's a strong word, but like, I'm not a fan of a lot of these analysts that use a lot of recency bias when it comes to their rankings. I mean, we see this, and also just like stud power type of thing. You know, we don't see this just in college sports. We see this in high school sports too.
Right.
Especially in the state of Illinois when we're talking about basketball. When they do their rankings, they're absolutely freaking abysmal.
It's all over the place.
Yeah, but regardless, talking about this, I mean, with Colston Loveland being up there, I mean, like, I understand this because simply, like, if you go to PFF and you look at where some of these players are ranked, yeah, this is pretty much the order it goes in. I mean, Cam Ward is like ranked 20 on PFF.
Yeah,
and prospect.
Let's move to the 10 through 20, part 2 of this. Right. So now, still going on Cam Ward. Keep talking about how Cam Ward he's ranked 20th, the 20th best prospect, but he's ranked what, the number 1 overall quarterback in the draft.
Yeah, he's the best. Yeah, he's the number 1 ranked.
But he's the 20th ranked prospect.
Correct.
Then you have Mimbow, who has moved up to being the number 11 prospect, which nobody thought was going to happen for him.
Yeah.
And he's pushed a guy like McMillan all the way down to 16th.
Bro, you know what? I haven't seen Kelvin Banks.
Yeah, Kelvin Banks has completely dropped out of the top 20.
And again, I think this is because of analysts writing their narratives. Like, going into the draft before, you know, all this combine stuff was going on, when we were still in season, it was either people were talking about, okay, it's either Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks that goes first
as the best tackles.
Now he ain't even in the top 20 of prospects. Like, that's BS to me.
And then you have Mikael Williams, who's dropped dramatically from where he was slated to go.
Some people were saying he'd go top 10.
Right, and he's dropped dramatically. Jahad Campbell has moved up. Omarion Hampton has crept up to be a top 20 prospect, which people didn't think was about him. At one point, people thought he was going to be a second-round prospect.
Yeah, which, I mean, granted, like, just for clarity and just so the viewers know at home, like, yeah, of course, we know, like, yeah, it says what it says. Like, okay, Mumbu at 11, Jahad Campbell at 12. We don't think this is what the draft order is going to go in.
Not necessarily, but I do think that some of the free agency moves that have been done, and then along with the combine, has kind of reframed and reshaped what this draft is going to look like, which is why I think Shedeur Sanders being the 18th best prospect is something that gives me a little bit of, like, not necessarily caution or pause, but it gives me a reason to believe that he could end up somewhere like Pittsburgh. Like, if Pittsburgh manages to, let's say, keep Russell Wilson just for right now to maintain their level of competitiveness, and then they're able to bring in a Shedeur to learn from Russell, to learn the system and things of that nature, that sets them up for the future. Like, that would be a win-win scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so him falling in the draft, or him falling as a prospect, I don't know if he's going to fall in the draft, but we'll talk about that in a second. Him falling as a prospect gives me kind of an idea that I won't be necessarily surprised if Shedeur Sanders falls all the way to the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially with the fact that both the Jets and the Raiders have technically figured out their quarterback situation. Now, the Raiders could still draft Shedeur Sanders because they could still look at it the same way. We have us a veteran quarterback, and we will want this rookie to come in and learn from this veteran and learn the system, so that when we're kind of ready to transition, we have our rookie quarterback. But from what I'm hearing, it doesn't seem like there's too many teams that's so high, quote unquote, on this quarterback class, which means that there are a lot of teams that's willing to say, we have a quarterback piece now. We can wait till next year's draft to get us a quarterback. Let's get the best, quote unquote, prospect at this particular point in the draft for us to take. And that what gives me a little bit of like, this free agency and the certain moves have kind of shifted and moved a lot of things around for this upcoming draft.
Oh, and of course, and it always will. Because kind of walking into free agency, yeah, you kind of have your projections of who's going to take who in the draft,
Right.
but it's all based on needs for the most part.
Right, absolutely.
When they make mock drafts, it's not necessarily about best player available at times. It's really about filling positional needs for the team.
Yeah.
So, I think, of course, free agency every year has influenced what the NFL draft actually looks like, considering it does come first. I love that free agency comes first because then teams have more flexibility on where to go in the draft and kind of where they want their future to be. And yeah, I think of course, free agency is going to tell us make big changes again. I think with the whole Shador case, if he falls that far, if he doesn't go top 3, he's falling far. That's what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
He might mess around and fall out of the first round
Completely.
He might go round 2.
That would be
because
that would be shocking to me. I wouldn't be shocked if he falls out of the top 3, but going in the second round would absolutely shock me.
Because here's my thing, right? If you look at the quarterbacks later in the draft that need a quarterback,
or the teams that need quarterbacks,
the teams, So, I mean, what you got? Seattle, but they signed Sam Darnold.
Right.
You've got Pittsburgh, but they're probably going to take one of those veterans that are available, right? So
yeah, they're gonna. In my opinion, they're holding on to Russell.
So my thing is, if you're gonna take Shador Sanders, like, man, I don't know. You think they sit this kid on the bench and they don't hear about it? You know what I mean?
I think they sit him on the bench because unless he goes top 3, then there's no need for him. There's no necessarily need for him to play right away if you're able to tell fans that you want to bring him in as the quarterback for the future, but you want him to learn the system and not throw him right in the fire. Like Mike Tomlin can get away with doing whatever he wants to do. Like there's certain coaches that don't have to answer questions about why a guy isn't playing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're Deion Sanders, are you going to question Mike Tomlin's thought process on how he wants to bring Shador Sanders along? Right. No. Now, if he goes somewhere like New York, where it's Brian Daboll, somebody that hasn't proved anything, then, yeah, you're going to be like, well, why isn't my kid playing? You don't have anybody here. He should play. If it's Cleveland, Lord forbid, same thing. If it's Tennessee, you're really telling me you don't want to start Shador over Will Levis? Like, there are certain teams where it's just like, yeah, there's no conversation. But if you're bringing him into a situation where there's a veteran quarterback there who is somebody that has won and you're aligning him with a head coach that people respect, then you don't have to answer questions about why Shador isn't starting right away. It's clear that there is a clear line of succession that's going to be done. But that has been the halftime report. Let's move on to the halftime predictions. Yeah. All right, staying hype about things and staying on this draft. We're talking about the Giants. Yes, we hear that they could potentially get Aaron Rodgers. Yes, we hear that they are in runners for Russell Wilson. But another rumor has percolated and it's starting to feel a little strong and it's starting to feel like it could be something that's really potentially to happen, is that the New York Giants will facilitate a trade with the Tennessee Titans to move up from 3 to 1. And that particular draft order, what seems to happen there is that the New York Giants end up taking Cam Ward. Now, this is another mock draft design where Cam Ward goes number 1 to the New York Giants. Abdul Carter ends up going to Cleveland to pair along with Myles Garrett as another edge rusher. Tennessee ends up taking Travis. And we move on down to number 6, where the Vegas Raiders, who I said could still try to go after Shedeur as another version of a succession behind a veteran quarterback, which is why I don't necessarily think it's a forego that Shedeur has to go top 3. I just think if he gets past Vegas, then he'll end up with Pittsburgh. Because the Jets, they're going to decide to go. You're not bringing in Shedeur Sanders to compete with Justin Fields. You're going to give Justin Fields a complete opportunity to do what he does.
Right.
If anything, you're going to give Justin Fields a weapon, which is why in this mock draft they go after McMillan to pair alongside Garrett Wilson, which I think would be absolutely smart.
Yeah.
I think that would be completely smart. So my question for you is, if New York decides to make this trade and go from 3 to 1, is this a likely scenario for you as far as what the draft might look like?
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it playing out this way. I mean, of course, if they were to trade up, of course, Cam Ward would go 1, no doubt. But then we move on from there. Abdul Carter going 2. I mean, possibly. Something always tells me that they still need quarterback.
I mean, they got Kenny Pickett. They can still re-sign Jameis Winston because Jameis Winston still hasn't went anywhere. So they can still technically re-sign him. And
you know what I mean? It's like it's still that big question mark at the position, and you just paid Myles Garrett $40 million a year to rush the quarterback for you. Are you gonna go and get a rookie now to pair alongside of him? Maybe, with the guy that Abdul Carter is, but I mean, maybe you'd want a quarterback on a rookie contract as well.
So
you
would do that. I mean, I'll put it this way. So Shedeur said some things at the combine about you shouldn't get me if you're not prepared to change the culture. One team has specifically outwardly said that they're looking to change the culture. That's the Vegas Raiders. Another team that should be trying to change their culture would be the Cleveland Browns. My thing about that, though, is with all the relationship that we know Shedeur has with Las Vegas from the personnel and the people that's there, and what we know about Deion Sanders, would it even be smart for the Cleveland Browns to even take a gamble on drafting Shedeur, knowing the possibility of it being something that would completely blow up in their face as far as media backlash, Deion saying the things that he's saying, Shedeur potentially saying that he doesn't even want to play, that he doesn't even want to suit up for Cleveland? Like, is that worth it?
I don't know. I guess it really does matter how much of a quarterback do you view Shedeur Sanders to be. Do you think he's good? Do you think he's great? Do you think he's going to be good or great?
So you would do it even if he doesn't want to play for you?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, he hasn't come out and said that, right? I mean,
he hasn't. But there's been things that's been implied that Cleveland wouldn't be first on the list.
Right, and I understand that, but I mean, then you also look at draft history, and when Cleveland had the first pick a little while ago, and they took Baker, who was the hottest prospect in town for recent years coming out of the draft. Right. He goes to a market like Cleveland, which don't have jack shit. Mm-hmm. But regardless, like I think that's why maybe Shedeur would end up going to Cleveland. I don't know. Simply because I think they need to adjust the quarterback position, especially since they paid Myles Garrett that amount of money. You need to reset your quarterback books, and I think even the money, you're still paying Deshaun Watson.
Well, that's what the other thing I was gonna say is, you were able to facilitate paying Myles Garrett while still also paying Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson isn't completely out the league. He's hurt again, so he'll be out for this season.
He's not playing anywhere else.
No, I'm just saying. he's hurt again, so he'll be out for this season. But Deshaun Watson still has 2 years left on that contract.
Oh, yeah, but I'm saying, like, he's not playing football no more.
Do you think his career is over?
He's done. Nobody's going to deal with Deshaun Watson.
No, I'm saying when he's healthy, he still has 2 years left to play for Cleveland. So you're saying even when he's healthy, Cleveland is not going to let him touch the field?
Well, what is the 2 years including this year? This upcoming
No, he has
season?
two additional years. So after the season, he still has 2 additional years on that contract. Yeah,
I didn't think so. I thought it was this year and then one more and then that's it. But regardless, I don't think any team is gonna want to deal with that. Let me just double check his contract real quick. Nah, it's this year, next year, and that's it. Yeah, so his cap hit this year is a $36 million cap hit. In 2026,
he has 3 years left on his deal.
No, because they haven't updated because the new league year hasn't officially started yet. It starts at 4 p.m. today.
Right, so it's this season. No, this was just updated 6 days ago.
Yeah, I'm looking at Spotrac right now.
Yeah,
he's gonna it's gonna be what's it called? He's got 2025 and he's got 2026.
And he got 2027.
They don't say that here. It says void UFA, so it shows its potential cap hit, but they don't have to pay him that money because they restructured the contract.
That's what I mean by the fact that they have 3 years. So they restructured it to where that last year, so what they did was they restructured it to where that last year pays off the 230. But he still has the ability to play that 2026, 2027 season if they decide to give him a new deal outside of this one that he signed for the 230. So originally he was going to be a part of that 2026, 2027 season, but they front loaded the rest of that deal on that last season. So what I'm saying is technically he has 3 years. 2 of them has a salary attached to it. The last one doesn't necessarily have a salary attached to it yet. What I'm saying is this season is going to go by. Next season, if he comes back and plays well, then you have the ability to sign him to a new deal and everything is blah, blah, blah. So if Cleveland is looking at it that way, from what it appears to me, they still believe that Deshaun Watson can be their answer at quarterback. He just has to get healthy. They still have because they're getting Kenny Pickett, they're getting Jameis Winston. They haven't done anything that shows me that they're ready to say Deshaun Watson is his career is over with. Now, if they go get Shedeur Sanders, then that tells me that they no longer believe in Deshaun. If they trade for Kirk Cousins or something like that, that tells me that they no longer believe in Deshaun. My only statement about getting Shedeur Sanders is if you get him, does he want to play there? And if he doesn't want to play there, then you've wasted an opportunity to get somebody like Abdul Carter, who is the top prospect in the draft according to new mock drafts. You're wasting an opportunity to get Abdul Carter to get a quarterback that may not want to play.
No, yeah, and
I don't know if that's a gamble worth taking.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's definitely a gamble, right? I mean, we remember how the whole Eli Manning situation went down, and
right.
That was just a complete utter mess. But I guess just looking at the rest of the order, I could definitely see the rest of the order going the way it does. If this were to stand, Membu going 10 to
I
the
like
Bears,
Membu to us.
That'd be nice.
See, honestly, I like him more than I like Will Campbell.
I think the reason why people don't like Will Campbell is because of the physicals. I mean,
yeah, his arms are really short. He's not really a tackle.
Yeah,
his arms are really short. He doesn't come off to be the strongest offensive lineman that's in this draft. Membu has shown that he's a monster and he's quick.
Yeah.
And he's quick,
he's
quick-footed.
He's definitely a monster athlete, but I think where Will Campbell still ranks ahead of him is because of his quick feet. Will Campbell's footwork is second to none.
Right.
Definitely some of the best footwork we've seen from.
But is he a tackle
lineman.
or is he going to be a guard in the NFL?
That's what I don't know. I mean, he really insists on playing tackle, but people are saying, or he's come out and said, of course he's going to do anything the team needs him to do.
But he wants to play left tackle because that's where the money is.
Yeah, I mean, of course that's where the money is, but that's also where he's played his whole football career. So it doesn't shock me one bit.
Would you? Let me ask you this just really quickly: If Membu and Campbell is there and the Bears do take Membu, are you upset?
No, you still get top 2 offensive lineman prospect.
Okay.
You know what I mean? As long as it's one of those 2 guys. I think if those 2 guys are on there and you take Kelvin Banks, then I don't know.
Then you'll be pissed.
Yeah,
right.
but
that's fair.
If it's one of those 2 guys, I'm fine with either
one. Do you think that this will happen? Do you think you see New York trading for the number 1 pick? Does that happen?
I've seen it in multiple mock drafts. Do I think it happens? Probably, because I don't know if Tennessee is so set on drafting
getting a quarterback. Yeah,
even though it would be Cam Ward, who maybe they're not believers in.
Yeah.
Maybe they think they could go and get a veteran quarterback. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is still on the table.
Or maybe they just want to see what Will Levis can become.
Or that. Or,
maybe they will give him a shot. Or they could just look to the future drafts
with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe they're trying to bring him in. Tennessee. For doing his ayahuasca. It's just a great state to do it in. So I wouldn't be surprised there. And then, but again, I think regardless, it'd be interesting to see what happens from there. I do see the Giants though moving up to 1.
Okay.
Taking Cam Ward because they need to.
Quarterback.
If they don't get one of these 2 veterans, they
have to get a quarterback.
To do this, or Joe Schoen. I guarantee you, the next day, he's fired.
But you don't think under no circumstances that if New York goes number 1, Shedeur Sanders goes number 1?
No.
Okay.
I think Cam Ward solidified, bona fide. He's number 1.
And you think that there could be a small chance that Shedeur goes number 2 to Cleveland?
Yeah, small chance. I give it like a 25% chance.
Now, do you think Shedeur will fall out of this top 10? Do you think that Shedeur will get past the Raiders?
If he gets past the Raiders, yeah. I mean, I could see the Raiders going Genty.
So you do think there's a chance that Shedeur will go past the Raiders?
I'm saying, if he gets past the top 10, it's very, very possible he falls to the second round.
So essentially, if he doesn't go, for Shedeur, if he doesn't go to Cleveland, New York, Vegas, or the Jets, he's out of the top 10. He's not going to go to the Jets.
No, so we already know he ain't going to the Jets.
So if he gets past New York, Cleveland, and the Raiders, he's fallen. I agree with you.
Yeah.
That we can agree on.
I mean, maybe he goes late first round, but then again, you look at the teams down there and who's really going to take him? I mean,
I say it's going to be Pittsburgh. That's me. I think Pittsburgh is going to take him at 21.
Maybe they might, and, depending on who they bring in at quarterback, maybe they do get one of the veterans and, have him sit the year. But, again, I think with the national product and the market he brings in, going wherever he's going to go, and all the fame, internet personality he brings, I think it's going to be really hard to sit him in his first year. I think it's going to be a big problem if anybody tries to do that. And good old Deion's going to go ahead and incite a riot. And
I don't know. I think if he goes to Pittsburgh, Deion is okay. Honestly, I think he's okay.
I mean, yeah, possibly. Yeah, maybe.
It's the coach and the organization. If he goes somewhere where the coach and the organization have no reason to sit Shedeur, then Deion is going to make a statement. But if he goes somewhere where the organization is trusted, the coach is trusted, and the culture is already set in stone as to we are a winning organization, then Deion won't say a word because he knows his son is in good hands. But if he knows his son ends up somewhere where the hands are questionable, then Deion will definitely say something.
Mm-hmm.
He will definitely say something at that point.
All
right, that has been episode what, Coach?
This is episode 24.
24 of the Halftime Podcast.
It's our Kobe episode.
This is our Kobe episode. Again, we do want to tell you guys that we will be moving our audio recordings to DSPs coming up. All right, we will be on Apple and Spotify. We'll be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and any other places that you can get your podcasts like Amazon Prime. That is something that we are very, 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 very excited about. It could potentially happen episode 25 where we start our first journey on joining the DSPs of Strictly Audio for the Halftime Podcast. We will obviously continue to do what we do on YouTube because we love doing this as well, but we want to let you guys know that you will be able to check us out on DSPs if it's a hard time for you to be able to listen to us on YouTube. We are hearing some of the fans. I've engaged with people in real time, in real life, and they've been asking a lot about where we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and I see that is something that people will like from us. So we are looking into that, but as always, we want you guys to subscribe to the channel. We get a lot of comments, we get a lot of likes, we get a lot of clicks, a lot of interactions, but the numbers on the YouTube page need to go up. We need them subscribers to go up. So please like, subscribe, comment, follow us on all of our socials from TikTok to Instagram, even our individual handles. Coach Conrad and myself, you always got a chance to talk to us individually. We have a lot of things going on as coaches. So just be on the lookout. The Halftime Podcast has a lot of things going on.
Oh, we got a lot of things.
Yeah, a lot of things happening, a lot of things moving, and a lot of things that we're trying to do. So with that being said, again, follow us on all of our socials. Subscribe to our YouTube. We will definitely let you know once we have moved over our audio to our Apple, Spotify, Amazon Prime Podcasting. And yeah, this has been episode 24. I'm Coach Malcolm.
And I'm Coach Conrad.
And as always, you know how we go. See red and bear down, baby.